Hello everyone, this is Michelle. I'm Digital Conversion Manager at PrestaShop. I hope you're doing great today. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and I would like to thank all of you for following us from wherever you are. I would also like to thank the sponsors of this webinar, PayPal and Criteo. Do not forget to click on their links to discover their services or to contact them. Now let's welcome on stage Mathieu Ferment, Senior Core Developer or Developer at PrestaShop, that's here to share his expertise with us and to host this webinar, Worldwide Tech, How Do We Keep PrestaShop Secure? One last thing, do not forget to go in the chat tab to send us your questions. We'll be more than pleased to answer them at the end of the presentation. Hello, Mathieu.
Hello, thank you so much for the introduction. So I will now share my slide.
Well, I let you present you, and the floor is all yours.
All right. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Mathieu Ferment, and I am a senior co-developer at PrestaShop, which means I am working on the software, the very software that we are going to discuss about today. And today I'm going to discuss about security in this talk that we call How We Keep PrestaShop Secure. Well, this talk is about web security at PrestaShop and in the world, because obviously PrestaShop is part of the web and we have to adapt for the new trends of the web, security stuff, and obviously incidents to make sure that we keep the software as secure as possible. So I already introduced myself, but before going any further, I would like to say a big thank you to Pierre Rambaud, who is a colleague. He's also a senior co-developer at PrestaShop, and he is our security lead. So I'm going today to discuss about security at PrestaShop, but actually I'm going to present most of his work. He's the one who is doing most of the work about security. He couldn't be here with us today, but I guess that if you have some complex questions at the end of the presentation and not able to answer it, he will help me as soon as he gets back to answer them. So we both work on GitHub, as it's an open source project, and you can find us with the nicknames Macres and Pierre Rambaud. And now that we have introduced the two persons, we can start talking about World Web Security in 2019. So when you want to have a look at how security is going on in the web, it's not really easy, because companies, when they are being attacked, the first thing they're going to do is not to go to tell the customers, hey, we have been hacked. This is how the attackers did it. This is what data has been stolen, and this is what we're going to do. No, as companies do not like to do this. This is not something they want to be public about. So it's quite hard to have accurate statistics about security incidents in the web. However, there is something that we can quite easily monitor. It's data breaches, because when the data is breached and it's stolen and put out there, well, it's easy to go there and to find how much there is. So we can have a look at the number of data breaches in 2018 to get a grasp of how things are going on. So on the left, you have the numbers of reported data breaches, which is 7,089. And even if it looks like a big number, it's actually quite stable. It's very similar to the levels of 2 previous years. However, what is not stable is the data breaches size. It has been increased by 300%. So it's quite interesting. We have the same number of breaches as in previous years, but they are a lot bigger. They are a lot more huge. And when we see an increase, to be totally accurate, we are talking about 15.1 million stolen data, and it's mostly emails and passwords. So that's a lot of stolen data, right? These are the charts showing you how the numbers have evolved in the last years. So you can see on the left that it evolved, and now it's quite stable. This is on the left, this is the numbers of breaches, and on the right, this is the size of the breaches. And you can see the very big increase in 2018. So same number of breaches, but a lot bigger breaches. That's interesting. Another thing we can look at for attacks is the number of reported vulnerabilities. So we can have a look at the number of official vulnerabilities reported, CVE, and we can see that the number of reported vulnerabilities in 2019 is all right. It's a little bit less than the 2 previous years, even though we can still see that the graph is going up. However, this is just a number of vulnerabilities. We're not talking here about severity. We're not talking here about how much the vulnerability has been used, just a number of vulnerabilities. So it's just one KPI. So we had this little check about attacks number. Now we can have a look at the other side of security, which is defense. And by this, I mean best practices. So for example, we can have a look at PHP versions still being used in the world, because you know that the very first rule to keep secure is to keep your software, your hardware, your dependencies, your languages, your operational systems up to date. You need to still use maintained versions. And PHP 5 has reached end of life last year. So this chart shows us, according to Packagist, which is a package registry for PHP, the PHP versions being used on the left at the end of the year 2019, on the right in May 2020. And what's interesting is the little deep blue part, because the deep blue part is the number of people still using PHP 5.6, even though it's not maintained anymore. So we can see that on the left it was 7%, and in May 2020 it's now 5%. So the good news is that most of people are using PHP 7, which is a secure version, or at least the most recent ones. And instead that people are upgrading. We still have this little group of people that still use PHP 5, but on this, my guess would be that it's people who have some complex code bases or complex applications that they cannot easily upgrade. And I do not expect these numbers of people using PHP 5.6 to drop significantly in the next months. I think it's going to continue decreasing slowly but slowly. But if the people are still using PHP 5 now, it's probably because there are some big difficulties to upgrade to PHP 7. However, the chart is a good number. It's some good news about people using up-to-date PHP versions. And another very good news comes from Google. So I think that you are aware that if you use the Chrome browser, when you're using it, you are sending anonymous data to Google. Anonymous, right? And so Google can use this data to compute some interesting stats, and this one is totally open. I put the link below. Everybody can check this. And this chart is really interesting because it shows, according to the people using Chrome, the number of websites using HTTPS versus HTTP. And on the far right, this is year in 2020, and we can see that we are very close to 100%. This is amazing. This is great news. We are very close to a fully HTTPS web, and this is very important for security. By the way, the yellow line is actually the sum of all the lines, and the other lines are the group of people, whether they're using Windows, Android, Linux, or Mac. So we can see that like 2 years ago, it was like some half of it, and now we're really close to 100% people using HTTPS. So that's really good news. So we have an increase of attacks, but we also can see people are doing their best to follow best practices. I think that's good news. Before stopping this introduction about a little tour on the web, I would like to tell you about 2 trends that I've seen. Well, when I started preparing this talk, obviously I have been reading a lot of reports and sources about security, and I noticed these 2 trends. So the first one is about ransomware. Apparently, the numbers of ransomware rose up by 360% in the last year. So it means that previously, when attackers were able to steal some data, the very first thing they will do will be to sell the data to get money out of it. But now it seems to have a new trend, which is they're going to steal the data, then they're going to contact the company and ask for money by saying them, if you do not send us the money, we're going to sell the data or give it to anybody who wants it. So we can see that attackers are finding new ways to get money out of it, and this is going to impact how the target website and how they act. By the way, according to the report, this ransomware, these extortion events happen to businesses of any size, small, medium, big. So it's not just for big companies. That's what I mean. And the second trend that has been noticed in year 2019 is that we see now modern phishing attacks. So you know that most of the time, phishing happens by sending a fake email to someone, telling them to click on this link, put their password, put their login here because they need to do something like is very important for security. And it's still the majority of phishing attacks. But now we can see new interesting ways to do phishing attacks involving, for example, LinkedIn requests, or we can see Facebook or Twitter links, or Facebook or Twitter invitations being sent to people to phish them. So it looks like attackers are evolving just like we are and trying to find new and modern ways to trick people. So let's stay focused and let's continue this game of cat and mouse between people trying to secure websites and people trying to attack them. So 2019 was really, it looks like it was an interesting year. And I guess this is enough for this little tour about web security. And now we can finally start focusing on PrestaShop. So this talk is about how we keep PrestaShop secure. And I'm going now to answer it for the year 2018 and for the year 2020, because we've made some huge improvements for the year 2020, but we'll see that. So when we discuss security at PrestaShop, obviously the very first thing we're going to present is our report process. Because PrestaShop is an open source project, and obviously this is software, so there are bugs, and sometimes there are security bugs. So we need to provide people a way to report vulnerabilities so we can analyze them and patch them. So in 2019, if by any chance you will find a vulnerability or you believe you have found a vulnerability inside PrestaShop, you can report it to our email address, security@prestashop.com. Then we receive all of these reports, we analyze them, and then three possible use cases happen. Either it's not a bug. Sometimes we have people sending things that are actually not bugs, are features, or sometimes related to a specific configuration and customization. So that's a good use case. But sometimes we also confirm that indeed this is a security issue. So when we confirm that there is a security issue, we have two use cases. The first one, if it's not critical, we're going to register the security issue and we're going to patch it in the next scheduled minor version. So we're not going to modify the release schedule, but we're going to patch it in the next minor version. And we will not publish anything about the threat before releasing, so that at the moment of when we explain to people that someone found an issue, we also provide a patch to protect against it. So this is the good use case. Now there's a bad use case. It's when we find a critical vulnerability. So on this one, we have a word that I really like from our CTO, Aurélien Pelletier, which is when someone reports a critical security issue, everybody stops working on whatever they're doing, and everybody gathers and starts working on the patch. So we have this very clear word, because security is our number one priority in the developers team. when there is a critical vulnerability, everybody stops whatever they're doing and starts fixing it. And we release a patch for the maintained version as soon as possible. So it's quite a complex process. So I thought it would be interesting to provide an example. So let's say that, like right now, someone reported a vulnerability at security@PrestaShop.com. So we will have Pierre, the security lead, performing the vulnerability analysis. And if he confirms it's critical, he's going to tell to the whole team, hey, everybody, drop whatever you're doing, and let's gather and fix this. So today, the latest PrestaShop version is 1765. So this means that we're going to prepare a patch for 1766, which is the next patch version. So we start working on it. We fix the issue. Then we pass the QA because we still introduce changes into the software. So we need QA to make sure that we didn't introduce any bug. Then we prepare the new 1766 zip archive to be published. And this usually happens within 24 to 48 hours. Then we can finally publish the new release on PrestaShop.com and on GitHub. And finally, we can disclose the vulnerability on build.PrestaShop.com so that anybody can understand it and can upgrade the new version to be protected against it. So this is it. This is our vulnerability report process, or this was our process, because we improved it a lot in year 2020. By the way, you might be wondering how vulnerabilities are found. This little red rectangle in the top left. Well, actually, what happens most of the time is that we have a big company considering the idea of using PrestaShop. So they mandate a security company to perform an audit. And if the security company finds something, they report it to us. This is how most of them are reported to us. So this was our vulnerability report process. And in year 2019, well, it did quite well because we only had 2 vulnerabilities reported. That's a small number for a project of our size. So these are the numbers. The first one was reflected XSS. It was not a critical one, so it was fixed in the next minor version, PrestaShop 1760. And the second one was a possible customer's data leak. Again, it was not critical, so it was fixed in the next version, PrestaShop 1760. Also, in year 2019, we went to Google CMS Summit. So this is an event hosted by Google. And in this event, Google is inviting all the major CMS like WordPress, Drupal, Joomla, and also the hosting providers like SiteGround, so we can discuss and exchange together about our experiences about security. Because, you know, security is actually quite the same story being said, told again and again and again. The issues that we have now, maybe this is the issue that WordPress had 1 year before, maybe this is the one that Drupal is going to face. It's always kind of the same issues, although it's always a little bit different. So it's interesting for us to discuss with other people facing the same kind of issues, so we can exchange about processes, about best practices, about ideas, about tools also. So yeah, that's what Google wanted us to do, to share this knowledge so we can become better together. Also, they wanted some feedbacks about how we deal with security, and since they are always working on new security tools and security in Chrome, they wanted feedbacks. But this is a very nice initiative from Google. And one of the best things we got from this summit is actually that now we have access to a Slack channel hosted by Google where all of these CMS and hosting providers are. So we can discuss at any moment with the people from Drupal or WordPress if we find an issue and we believe that maybe they could have the same issue. So now we can really discuss together and almost in real time to find the very best solution to common problems. So that's it for year 2019. It was a good year. We did some interesting stuff. But in the year 2020, we have done a lot more, and this is why it's interesting to talk about it today. So yeah, in the year 2020, we did amazing thing. However, the year didn't start it very well, because I don't know if you're aware of that, but at the very beginning of the year 2020, on January 7th, we had to publish this blog article which said critical security vulnerability in PrestaShop modules. So that was really a rough start for us. And this critical security vulnerability was real, and it was a big issue. It's how to say, it's the kind of issues, almost the most critical kind of issues we can have about CMS. Well, it was a very similar issue happened to Drupal 1 or 2 years before. Now it was autumn. So yeah, a big, very, very rough start. And this issue was critical, but it was also complex. It was complex because the root cause of the issue was inside a dependency of PrestaShop. So this is not some code that PrestaShop makes, it's some code that PrestaShop uses. So we couldn't just fix it, and that's all. We had to discuss with the people who are maintaining this dependency. So we reported it to the maintainers, following the responsible disclosure principle. So they were really nice and they understood. Then we agreed to report this issue as an official vulnerability, because we wanted to make it public so anybody can understand what's going on. So we contacted a CV authority to report it as a CV entry, and we got no answers, like for weeks. So here we were with this issue. We wanted to report following the official process, and we got no answers. And the second thing that was complex about this issue was that attacks were already happening when we found about it. Usually, when someone reports us an issue, well, we know about it, and the person who reported it knows about it. But we have still some time to find the very best solution, the very best fix, so we can really do something and take the necessary time to address this issue in the best manner. For this issue, we knew when it was reported that it was already being used, so we had to act fast. And at this moment, by the way, it was really nice that we had access to the Google CMS Summit Slack, because we were able to discuss directly to hosting providers, because for this issue, hosting providers could fix it on the side. So, you know, when we find an issue inside PrestaShop, we have to patch it, then we create a new release, but we still need people to either upgrade or apply the patch so their shops are protected. So we do something, but then we have to wait for people to upgrade. However, if it's on hosting provider's side, they can do this immediately. So it was really interesting at this moment that we could discuss with hosting providers and find a way to protect people immediately without all the release and upgrade process. That was really, really good. So it was a complex issue, and just like most complex issues, it obliged us to find new ways to improve our process to address it. And because we still had this issue that we wanted to report following an official process, and we get no answers from the CV authority. So at this time, what we did is that we decided to contact a new CV authority, which is GitHub. So I don't know if you're aware of that, but GitHub in the last years, they have started releasing very interesting features for any kind of users, and some of them are about security. So they created this thing they call GitHub Security Advisories, and this is basically a CVE database. It was launched last year, and you can report your issues to them, and they're going to register. So we use the security process of GitHub to report the issue, and we got the answer in 3 hours. I was shocked, I was stunned, like I was expecting an answer within hours or days, but 3 hours, it was really, really fast. So we have this, and also another very interesting thing that GitHub allows us now is that when we have a security issue, obviously we need to fix it, but we cannot do it publicly because attackers are always checking our code on GitHub, which is open because this is open source. So we have to hide what we're doing although we're working on open source project. And so before we had some tricks to do it, but GitHub created an official way to have private forks about projects like ours. So we can now have a dedicated process to fix issues without being seen. So that's really, really good news. We don't need to use tricks anymore. So this is what the GitHub security advisory for the critical security I'm talking about looks like. It's very clear. You have the severity, the versions, the patch versions, the description, and this is a CD database, which means any security searcher can look at this and find issues about PrestaShop. It's very efficient. It's very transparent. It's very good. And another very interesting thing that GitHub has created is a little bot they call Dependabot. And actually, what this bot does is that it looks at this CV database and it tries to find projects hosted on GitHub that are using dependency where there are known issues. So basically, if you are a maintainer, if you have a project on GitHub, and tomorrow one of the dependencies that you are using reports a vulnerability, this little bot is going to notify you and tell you, hey, there was an issue in this version and you should upgrade. And this is very, very amazing because this is one of the key issues about security. Yes, you can patch your software, but until people have upgraded the new version to the patch version, they still are vulnerable. And this is an issue that has been there for years. And I will not say that GitHub has solved it completely, but this bot is really helping us toward this because we really want people to be notified as soon as possible when there is a security issue, be it PrestaShop or any software, right? So yes, GitHub has done this amazing work. Also, we went back to Google CMS Summit because there's one per year, same schedule, same people, same ideas, and we will probably continue going there in year 2021. And it's always great to see exchange feedbacks. As I just told you, the issue we had at the beginning of the year, it was something that Drupal had 2 or 3 years before, very, very close, very, very similar. So by discussing with them, we could fully understand the issue and we could fix it in the best manner. So it's really great that Google allows us to and helps us to discuss with every CMS so we can be better together. So now, in the next slide, I'm going to give you some very great information, and I will please ask you not to talk too much about it. So it's not really a secret, but it's something that is still in progress. So we wish not to talk too much about it publicly. So now I've done the teaser, so I guess I must go to the next slide. We are working on a bug bounty. And if you do not know what this means, a bug bounty is basically a program where you reward people if they report security issues. You give them money. And it's a big step forward for PrestaShop because it's a known fact that when you have a bug bounty, so when people know that if they report security issue, they can get money out of it, you suddenly find a lot more issues, a lot more security issues in your software. So, but it's a secret. It's still work in progress. We are still working on the scope. We are still working on the rules. And we expect to launch it publicly before the end of this year. At this moment, we will explain everything and everybody will be able to access it, including you. But right now, it's still a work in progress. So when the bug bounty will open, so soon, I hope, in 2020, we will have a very, I will not say new, greatly improved report process for vulnerabilities in PrestaShop. So we can have a look at it. This is the same process as the year before, improved. So if someone finds a vulnerability, he will be able to report it through our bug bounty, which is a platform dedicated for it. So there's some processes, some tools, some interfaces that are a lot better than just an email address. The vulnerability analysis is going to remain the same. But what changes after that now, Whenever we have a confirmed security issue, we create a GitHub advisory for it. And this is important because before, if you wanted to find all security issues, like let's say that we have a shop using PrestaShop, I don't know, 1743, where can you find security issues concerning the fashion? Where can you find them? Before you had to Google it. Now that we are creating this database of security issues thanks to GitHub, it will become very, very easy for anyone to find out when he's using one PrestaShop version, what kind of security issue he can face. So it's a lot easier to handle, and then if it's a lot easier, it's a lot more efficient for people to use it and protect against it. So if we come back to the example, let's say that, I don't know, when the bug bounty opens in September, you have some vulnerability that is reported through Yes We Hack Bug Bounty. We will have the vulnerability analysis by Pierre, just like before. Then if we confirm it's critical, well, latest version is still 1765, so we're going to prepare a patch version for 1766. We will fix the issue using the new feature from GitHub, private forks, and not the tricks we had to do before. We will still pass the QA validation because it's always code being changed, so we have to have a round of QA to make sure we do not introduce some bugs. And we prepare the zip archive 1766. And then, when finally we are ready, we can publish the 1766 release on PrestaShop.com and GitHub. We just before, like before, we disclose the vulnerability on build.prestashop.com, and we publish the GitHub security advisory. Yeah, when you create a security advisory, they stay in a draft state until you disclose them. So you disclose them when you are ready to provide to people the patch. And but you can still work on it before. So it's still some idea, work, and until everything is ready, do not disclose anything. Everything is disclosed and public on the release day. So, and something that is not on the graph, but it's obvious, since the security issue has been confirmed and is critical, we're going to give a lot of money to the guy who reported it. So we hope that with this bug bounty program, with this incentive for hackers to report issue, we're going to find a lot more issues. So I say we hope, but actually we know, because the first results are there. Even though the bug bounty program is still work in progress, we have started using it, let's say like it's like a beta period with some hackers, and we already been able to identify 18 security issues in PrestaShop thanks to this bug bounty, which is still work in progress. And on the 20th of April 2020, we were able to release PrestaShop 1765, which was a patch version focused on security. So in this version, there was 14 security issues solved inside the core, and there was 4 security issues solved into native modules. So it makes 18 of them. 18 that have been found thanks to this new report process we are working on. And some of the issues that we have solved inside it, they were there since PrestaShop 1.6 or 1.5. So we can really say now that PrestaShop is a lot more secure in year 2020 than in the previous years. And we're going to continue like this. We're going to find more and more vulnerabilities and fix them and patch them. So we are really, really proud of this achievement. Year 2020 is a big year for security at PrestaShop, and we expect to continue delivering this quality work for security in the incoming years. So we are close to the end of this talk. Before ending it, I would like to say a little word about something that is actually worrying us about the future. So you might have noticed that PHP and JavaScript ecosystems are accelerating their release frequency. For example, before you had PHP 5. PHP 5, it lasted for 10 years, I believe. Then you had PHP 7, and very, very very fast. You had PHP 7.0, .1, .2, .3, .4, and next, at the end of this year or beginning of next year, we're going to have PHP 8. So you can see that the release frequency of major and minor PHP versions is accelerating, and it's the same for JavaScript, be it for front-end libraries on Node.js and whatever. So we see all these libraries and tools that are increasing their release cycle. And because rule number one to stay safe is to be up to date, we have to adapt PrestaShop to these new versions. And it's actually quite a lot of work because we have a big project. So anytime we upgrade a library to a new version, we have to do a lot of checks, sometimes adapt a lot of code, and we have to do it quite often now. So it's a big cost. We're going to continue pay it because we will never just stay behind and not upgrade. Security is our number one priority. But we are quite worried about the cost of this maintenance for this year and the incoming year, because we think this trend is going to increase. It looks like people want to release more and more and more often in the incoming year, be it PHP, JavaScript, or whatever. And PrestaShop will probably need to also accelerate so we can follow this rhythm. So yeah, we're a bit worried about this, and we don't have a solution yet. However, what we hope to be able to do is to be able to discuss with the PHP core team and the JavaScript core teams and talk about them about this issue, because it's not only us. We have checked, Drupal has the same worries, WordPress has the same worries, because they have big projects like PrestaShop, it's the same size, it's kind of the same cost. So we are all worried about this, and we would like to discuss with PHP and JavaScript core teams about LTS, long-term stable versions, because there is no long LTS for PHP 7. So when PHP 7.4 is ended, it's PHP 8. It's not going to stay there for a long time. And it would be quite hard for us to follow this with this rhythm. So this is an issue. We don't have yet a solution, but we are trying to find one. And we know that the other CMS have the same issue. So I guess that thanks to the Google CMS Summit, we should be able to find together a solution for this common problem. And that's all for security at PrestaShop. Merci en français. And thank you so much for attending this.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Matthew, for this presentation, and thanks to you, the audience, for attending. Don't forget to come back for the next sessions, PrestaShop and the profitability of the business model, with Marie-Lou Nielsen and Vincent Redrado today at 4 p.m. and the Worldwide Tech of tomorrow at 3 p.m. PrestaShop Projects 1.7.a and beyond by Pablo Borovic. I see there are no questions by now. There's a question here. I'm going to put it like, does PrestaShop have a firewall extension? And if affirmative, which extension do you recommend?
Okay, so that's a tricky one. So we do not have a firewall extension because I believe it's more efficient to configure it on the server rather than software. And about which one to recommend, I'm going to use a joker of this. I will ask Pierre, who is our security lead, because he will have a better answer than me. And if I can come back to you later with the answer, because I have some in mind, but I prefer to ask the experts about this kind of question than answering something wrong.
Of course. Great. And don't, like I was saying, remember that you can contact Matthew and us by the messaging of the event website here. And also don't forget to rate this event before you go. 5 stars if you think it was great. And to follow us on our social media for daily recaps and to see the replays. Now you can all have a break or jump on an ongoing session. It's like you want. Thanks again, and well, see you soon.
Thank you so much.